Okay, I'm going to get myself set up. I'm over in lab 203 as opposed to the other lab because the big lab is just so hot, it's just almost unbearable. And so I'm over here in the smaller lab. I believe this is 203. I hope there's another class in here or I will be vacating. And I notice we've got a few of us, not too many of us here, who have arrived. So again, hopefully we'll get a few people here. Maybe all of you have decided to go into hiding, I don't know. But we'll record this session and we'll take it from there. And I want to make sure I've got good internet access. So let me go over here. And let's see if I'm okay, if I can go into the coax here, and we'll be in good shape. And I'll be on the Ethernet, I hope. Good. Okay. All right. Let me see who I've got here. I've got Patty and Taylor, and then, of course, me. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have others. But, again, I want to let everybody know I'm aware of the situation over in the lab, and I'm going to have to see what we can get done with that. Now, let me go and I'll close the door here and then get started. I've left everybody a notice in the other room. So we'll get started in just a minute. My apologies. All right, this is a virtual session, so I'm sure we're going to have some others who will join us a little bit later, maybe not. But just a quick review of where we are. This is week 3, of course, and you've got we've got a case follow-up, a management decision problem, and then we have an exam over Loudon. Now, let me note something. If you get some funky kinds of renderings in the Loudon exam, please let me know. I check those to see. There's just some problems with this LMS in terms of importing files. I'm not going to go too much further than that. We have what we have to work with, and I do the best I can, but sometimes when these systems don't play nicely with each other, I have to kind of work through. I could say this: if you get one of these exams and it's got some strange renderings, I'll give you the credit for that because that's a problem on our end, not yours. Nonetheless, I have some material that I want to cover today, and then we'll take a look at what's ahead. Let's just do this for a moment and take a look at what's ahead on week 4, and that's going to be the 17th and the 19th, and got a follow-up. And this case follow-up is, I think, one of the best ones or the most interesting ones in the entire textbook, and that deals with Amazon and Walmart, both of whom are fighting it out, as they say here, as they duke it out for e-commerce supremacy. And once Walmart got into the selling items online with a pickup, now with online and delivery, they're in that game. And Amazon has exceptional capabilities, as you've heard me say before. Amazon Web Services, AWS, provides lots of statistics and graphics and things for all of the professional leagues now. But they also, the Amazon Web Service, their online analytical processing engine is the best in the world. And that's why governments, large corporations buy time and rent that application from Amazon. By the same token, Walmart is very formidable at handling supply chain, and so I think you'll find it very interesting and lots of material about that case. Then you have a management decision problem. Again, we can work on, I let you choose, so I'll let you customize your experience. And then you have the interactive session number 1. Okay, that's over on pages 9 through 10. And then you have an exam over Loudon chapter 4. And then I have a resource there, several resources there that including the Landsat Land Viewer, which is one of those systems that circle around the satellite systems that circle around the globe, take pictures of the Earth using all kinds of things like sensory, infrared, all types of camera systems to monitor what's going on and what's happening with the Earth. Governments use these, of course, obviously to spy on each other, and a lot of private companies now, especially if they're state-sponsored like those in China, are using satellite systems to basically spy and take a look at. They might go and count the number of Walmarts that appear in a given area, thinking Walmart might be lying about how many units they actually have, or they might beam over a automobile assembly plant and see and get a count literally of how many vehicles are out there. It's just incredible what's happening with that whole system. Then I have a couple of web safaris for you. That is, I have some links, some places I think that are relevant to the material that week that I'd like you to visit. And then I have a resource there, history of cyber attacks. And then I have a link over to TED and a TED Talk. And I like to use those as guest speakers because these are people who are bona fide experts in their field. Their presentations are quite good. And so I provide you a link to go over and take a look at them, because I think what they have to say will often amplify what we're trying to cover that week in the text. Okay, so that hopefully that will make sense. And of course, you know the items that are due here. I'm going to say it a second time, repeat it. I really believe that this link, this interview with Reed Hastings, who is the founder of Netflix, I believe it's right, Reed Hastings. You'll want to, I believe that's his name, you'll want to take a look at that, because here you're seeing the kind of disruptive business model that's talked about, that is mentioned or alluded to when we look at Porter and the competitive forces. And Netflix is positioning itself as a substitute product for the old style network TV networks, the movie companies, whether they're independents or they're great big companies like, say, MGM. They're positioning themselves in terms of what's out there for streaming services. And Netflix, of course, they pioneered all of this. Used to be, you could go to, you go on Netflix, you'd order the movies, and they'd come. You get them within a day or two. There's also I believe they own a vending. They vend CDs. I think it's called Red Hat I think it's called Red Box, if I'm not mistaken. There are a few. I've seen them around in Oklahoma City. Not too many, but you can come and check the thing out, view it, and for a price, view it, return it. Well, Netflix saw that that's not going to be a good distribution model. The best distribution model is the internet, and so we're seeing these continued maneuverings. And if you're aware, let me cue you in. I've talked about what's over there in the tech section over in the New York Times. Let me also cue you into the Los Angeles Times, because I think they've got some great stuff out there too. To kind of get their perspective. And of course, Los Angeles is the entertainment company, is the entertainment center of the entire world, just like New York City, okay, is the financial capital of the world. And what you'll want to see you'll want to come over and take a look at the sections, and you'll see they have some things in film festivals, because that's, it's the movie business, and some of their other topics. And then they have some sections, and they have a tech section that's quite good. They also have a business section that's quite good. The entertainment and arts has also got some things in there that you'll often want to take a look at. Now, this streaming that's happening is now not only in terms of streaming finished product, but the streaming that's happening out there using the internet is disrupting the business of studios, that especially those that make music. Nashville has a studio, has Music Row. There are a lot of studios in Oklahoma City. There's a studio, a very nice one, recording studio in the old movie theater where I grew up, where I went to see movies. But what's happening now is that people are saying, wait a minute, why can't I stream in, like in a webinar, like we're doing here? Why can't I stream from wherever I'm at on tour or wherever I live, and let's have a rehearsal? And so we're seeing that kind of thing happen now, where we have people in different parts of the world basically they go into a meeting room, a webinar room. Everybody can see each other, they can hear each other, and they begin to make music, and they begin to have rehearsals and develop songs. That's going to change. That changes everything in terms of who can break into music, who can't. Recording studios, the costs of using them, etc. And those software, if you're a musician or no musicians, that stuff's out there now, and it's happening. And we're going to see more and more of that as that gets disrupted. I would predict we're going to see the same thing happen with the production of dramatic content. We're going to have actors all over the world who they probably have some software on their computer at home, and they rehearse their lines, or they do everything until it's time to come to the place where they have the set. Again, on recurring things like television shows that are weekly or daily, that may not be possible. I certainly think in movies, we're going to see more and more of that. Well, I wanted to alert you to this resource over here, and I also wanted to, again, encourage you, because Netflix is a high leverage disruptor. There are some others, particularly in the music business. Pandora is a disruptor. Their streaming services, Amazon, everybody's, and I think probably the biggest one, the most important one, is YouTube. And I can tell you now, I'm somebody who, I have a Spotify account, I have a premium account, and I've become increasingly discontent with paying a monthly fee when I can go find stuff on Amazon that I could never have found, that I can't find on Spotify because they don't have it. So this is one of these issues, and so I've tried to bring to attention the idea of disruptors, and I think Netflix is a great example of them. I think 3D printers are another example. So when we talked Tuesday about Porter and those 5 forces model, I also wanted to alert you to the disruptors who are out there, who are challenging the old ways of doing business. And that's happening in universities. What we are doing right now, having this virtual session, is not that unusual. It is for this place, but it's not if you look at the greater scope. You have universities out there now that have 80 or 100,000 students all over the world who use streaming services to conduct class, just like what we're having here in a session, and they have a learning management system, etc. So these disruptors and these changes that are occurring are important for you to take a look at. Now, there's another concept in addition to, as the textbook and the authors did a great job of talking about the Porter and the competitive forces model. Okay, they offer you also a checklist on, okay, how does IT fit with this? And you'll see that right after the Porter. But there's another thing here, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, and this is what we call the value web. You know, you've heard people talk about the value chain, but the internet and the internet and global logistics, the ability for somebody in Europe to say, Keith, I'll send you the package and you should get it within 24 to 36 hours, maybe 48 hours, and it comes to me. Boom. My wife and I went to Europe this summer and people were buying things. And it was amazing to me that the vendors who were selling them this stuff would automatically say, don't carry this with you. We'll ship it and we'll insure it to make certain that you get your package. My wife and I bought a vase when we were in Florence. It wasn't all that expensive. Really wasn't that, it wasn't very expensive, very pretty, very beautiful. And I was afraid if we carried the thing around on tour, we're going to break it. So we had it shipped to our house and it was there waiting on us. And it was in perfect condition. It had been packaged extremely well. And everything and all the paperwork and everything was there. And we were as happy as clams. And so this notion of value webs comes from the idea of the value of a network, okay? And the textbook's going to talk about this, and the authors will speak to it. But the best living example of this would be Facebook. Facebook's value is not in the fact that it's a platform where people can go live and broadcast something, or you can send each other messages, or you can post stuff. The value of Facebook is that it is a web. It's a set of interconnected people. And when you understand that, then you start to see its great value to advertisers and for good and bad people to use it as a way to spread information and ideas. I'm not going to go so far as to say this, but there are people out there who say that Facebook and Twitter are as important in those inventions or those applications are as important as the development of the printed book. I'm not sure about that, okay? I don't believe so, but I do believe that they are the ability for you and me to broadcast, to send pictures, text, voice is just unprecedented and makes everybody a movie producer or a video producer or a aspiring musician or an aspiring comedian. And we see now these folks out here who have made themselves YouTube stars. Well, that's part of this idea of a value web. Here the authors walk us through that concept of the value web of strategic alliances and partner firms. It's become readily apparent to people in most industries that they have to have strategic partnerships. They've got to have some partners because they can't do everything by themselves, okay? Probably the most common strategic partnership, and it's really not one, but I would say it probably kind of fits into this category, is when somebody like Google, okay, comes along and they see a company who's doing some kind of fantastic product and they say, hey, we want to buy you. Rather than trying to develop their own application, Google just simply says, we'll buy your firm, we'll buy your ideas, and we'll incorporate them into all of our products and services. And so we see the development of those. And you could see then how those all interact. And I'm just going to do a little bit of annotation here for a minute. Okay. And we'll do a bit of drawing. And notice here how the center point of this is the industry and shared ERP systems. That's enterprise resource planning systems. An ERP system handles the flow, the pooling and the flowing of money, materials, and handles and puts them into a time and type of project dimension or output dimension. And you see that your customers, your suppliers, everybody's sharing these kinds of core transaction systems. Okay? One of the reasons that everybody is so shook up about these tariffs that the president has announced is simple. They are in partnerships with so many of these firms. You might have a strategic alliance between firms in the United States, Europe, China, India, and when you start seeing these tariffs, or you start going, whoa, this is problematic for us. How do we handle these kinds of things? And when I think of alliances, for example, I think of United Airlines that has alignments with other airlines around the world who are its partners, and they will hook you up to a destination, and then their partner will take you from there. And so when we were flying, we were going over to Europe, my wife, Julie and I, we flew United. We landed in Amsterdam. That's where we started our tour. And then we had other people who were flying on, okay, with different airlines, but those are airlines who were partners of United Airlines. So we see this more and more. We really see this type of alignment of the value web in highly knowledge-intensive industries like research and development, pharmaceuticals, probably, and things like firms that are involved in genetics and DNA. Those firms, they're working at a tremendously high level and with extremely sophisticated ideas and technologies. And so they tend to partner with each other. Firms will do this, and you'll see if you watch much sports, you're going to see Old Dominion is the official carrier of Major League Baseball. What does that mean? What that means is Old Dominion, which is a trucking company for all intents and purposes, will pays Major League Baseball a fee to be their official carrier, and they pay them a fee for advertising, plus they give everybody, all those baseball players, folks who are affiliated with MLB, a tremendous discount. So they have their name out in front of the public. You'll see those same kinds of things all of the time. We see this kind of array of a value web also in the production of sophisticated products. The most sophisticated product, other than an airliner that we make or a weapon system, is an automobile. And we see these alliances between firms that that create a value web so they can work together to make an automobile. And you'll see some of them. I think one of the most interesting combinations has been Jaguar and Land Rover. Jaguar, which was always known for cars that were high-end sports, sophisticated vehicles. Now they've hooked up with Land Rover, who's known for vehicles that go anywhere and do anything. So they tried to get a mix and a blend of the two of them. So this notion of a value web is a very important one, because this is one of the ways that companies try to counteract the problems or the challenges that are posed by folks who come in and try to disrupt their industry. And this is, you're just going to see more and more of this. This even happens at the local level. You know, if you go into Oklahoma City, or you maybe even over here in Shawnee, or you travel into some larger cities, you'll see, and you go, say, to a deli or to a restaurant, you'll see a sign that says the food was sourced locally. What's happened is that there seems to be a cachet that if the food's made right there, okay, it's better and fresher, etc., than stuff that's shipped in from a supplier. And that may be true, that may be not true. I just don't know. But you see a lot of that. And if you pay much attention to restaurants, some of them are trying to do that. Panera probably is the most vocal about, we have clean food, we have good food, we try to source locally. Walmart's kind of put their toe in it as well. And again, it's part of this web where they're trying to counteract disruptors. Okay. A good example again would be the beverage industry. At one point in time, you had the biggest selling beverages outside. At one time you had beer. In terms of, let's exclude liquor and wine, you had beer and you had soda. Okay. And then and then the 80s and 90s, you saw water. People started buying Dasani water or whatever. We buy Ozark water. I don't know, it's probably just tap water, but yeah, it's in a pretty bottle and we have it. Okay. We put filters in all of our stuff at home, so we essentially have the same thing anyway. But now you see all kinds of, we saw that in the 90s and the early 2000s, the development of craft beers that were made locally. And those craft beers emerged because you had folks out who were locally who were selling materials to these folks that did craft beers and did their magic, etc. And so you're going to see more and more of that type of thing happen as we go on. So this notion, the two really big ideas in this chapter revolve around Porter and the idea of the competitive forces, and then this notion of really three ideas: that idea, the value idea of a value chain, and finally the idea of a value web. Okay, where we derive value from all the input, both informational and material, shared by everybody in that web. And so the authors do a nice job of showing you the movement and all of these different types of outlets and interfaces that are part of those webs. These are pretty typical alignment in terms of a value web and building them. Okay. I saw last night I watched an interesting thing on PBS in the PBS news hour. There are people now, artists, who have decided in order to combat theft or copying of their art, they're placing a blockchain barcode on their art. That technology, then, the blockchain is out there and everybody knows it. Okay, and it's out there worldwide. Now the solution has to be mediated between a buyer and a seller for a transaction. But if this continues on, there's going to come a day and a time where people will not be able to forge artwork. And part of this whole idea of this blockchain, it's over there in the PBS NewsHour from yesterday. You may want to go see it. It started with people who are artists. They had one modern artist who had a painting that sold at auction at Christie's, I think, for $90 million. The artist got nothing because the artist had been paid commission to do the work, got some money for it, maybe $10,000, $20,000, and then suddenly the work they did is being auctioned off. Well, those artists say, okay, and I can see where they're coming from, just like a musician, just like an actor, just like an author of a written book, or I want residuals, I want royalties for my art. And so this is one of the ways to verify that indeed this is what you created. It's authentic. And with that authenticity, then comes the ability to build royalty systems so that artists get paid. The other thing is with the blockchain technology and the ability to verify that this is indeed an original work of art, this allows common, ordinary people to buy art and they talked about a couple of organizations in which folks buy shares of these famous paintings that have been auctioned off at enormous amounts of money. So you can own 1/1000th of the Mona Lisa. Well, when the value of it goes up, you get a payday. And one of the potentials in terms of commissioning. So this notion of a value web is an exceptionally important one. And as I watched, I thought, wow, that's just absolutely amazing. And it's a group of artists that have begun to do that. And they trade not only physical art, but also digital art. There are a lot of people out there now who do nothing but digital work, and they sell it, and they're using this blockchain technology to verify that it's to authenticate it. Okay, and then you can see how that all starts to kind of move around. It's no different than people putting a copyright, okay, on artistic works, or people filing for a patent for a process or scientific product or something like that, or trademarks or any of those kinds of intellectual property, types of intellectual properties that guarantee you a payday. Okay, and but again, it's come from this idea of a web and the value of a web. Now, what's tragic to me, okay, what's really sad to me, is that out of all of our class, we've got 5. There's me and the 5 of you. I don't know where everybody else is at. I know the room is hot, so I moved it. But it's tragic. Now, I hope everybody will watch this, will watch the screencast. And I'm hoping that it will sink into you so that as you go up in the company where you go to work, as you may get promoted or you start your own firm, that you understand that the top, best, most profitable companies, forward-thinking companies, are thinking in these terms. This is how they're operating. And they're trying to exploit not only this notion of a value chain, but a value web as a means to deal with those competitive forces that are spoken about in that paradigm that Porter presented. Now there's a bunch of alliteration, isn't there? So I wanted to alert you to that and make sure that you saw that. And I'm going to erase this here. And I want to also, again, this notion of synergies, okay, core competencies, these are important. Network economics, the bigger the network, the more value it has. And we've talked about that as well. And virtual companies, all right? And I shared with you my experiences at the university I worked at before I came here, where we were a virtual university. We had a physical presence. We had a physical site. We had full-time faculty who worked there in Prescott, but the vast bulk of our faculty were folks who were working remote, and our students were all online. We didn't have any students in a physical classroom at all. The only time we saw students face-to-face fully, physically, was if they were a dissertation student and they came to defend their dissertation. And so that was that was a real eye-opener for me. And when I saw that happening, I thought, wow. Unfortunately, the university was owned by a gentleman. It was a private university, and he decided to sell it to an investment group. And my experience said a business investment group, basically a hedge fund, they may or may not be that interested in the quality of what we're doing, and it's time for me to move on. And there was an opportunity that came open here, and I had some friends that encouraged me, so here I am, unlucky you. But the strategic value is extremely important. And this whole idea of industry ecosystems, this is another important idea. And you talk about the substitutes, the market entrants, the customers, the suppliers, and every industry is like its own ecosystem. It's like its own world or its own environment. And it operates in its own ways and has its own kinds of rules and its own kind of talent pools. They have their own types of core competencies, etc. So this chapter is designed to get you thinking big picture. And again, that's one of the problems with the course, and I admit that, because as I speak in these big, broad terms, most of you are, and those of you who'll see the screencast, are thinking, now I got to get a job to get through this course. And I understand that you're thinking short term, but I would really encourage you to say, okay, how can I take this idea of a web, a network, a strategic network, a strategic web. How can I take this type of idea, and use it to build partnerships and alliances, use technology to build interfaces with suppliers and vendors and customers and regulators, so that we have the best information as fast as possible. Okay, how can we get everything in real time as much as possible? So there's a lot of meat at the end of the chapter here, and I really would encourage you to read this and think about how it applies to you. And we have a couple of very interesting exercises coming up, and I'm going to look at this management decision problem number 3. I say, okay, you can work on 3.8 or 3.9, okay? And I'm going to look over here at part 1 and in chapter 3, and let's see if I can find these management decision problems, okay? Project, teamwork, discussion, question, hands-on. Yeah. Now, one of these, if I'm not mistaken, deals with Macy's. I'll go to one of my bookmarks. And we'll just do a quick search here for Macy's, if I'm not mistaken. Well, give us a good review summary. I should have bookmarked that today when I was thinking about it. And we'll pop back over here. I think it's on page 114 and 115. My apologies about my lack of navigation skills. It's shocking, isn't it? And I'll pop over here and we'll find, and chapter 3, and we'll find page 114. They give us some discussion project questions. Here are the management decision problems. Earth to May. Lordy, I'm so sorry. Here's 3.8. Macy's, Very interesting. Here's a ground-based firm that's now trying to survive and make a transition. And then we have T-Mobile. Here's an interesting case. So you can choose one of those two management decision problems. And then I also have, the can we trust big data, that issue, that question. But I think it'll be interesting to see why you chose Macy's or you chose T-Mobile as a case that you wanted to follow. Okay? And let me stop now, because I've been going at this now for, goodness, nearly 40 minutes. Are there some questions that I could ask you or try to answer for you? Anybody? Now let me see who all I have here. Yeah, I've got Blake, Destiny, I've got Maddie, I've got Patty and Tyler. Any of you have any questions? Yes, no? I'll be interested to see what you have to say as you do your work. Now, let me take a few minutes to talk about something that I haven't done, and that is each week call people out to analyze a case study. Now, as you know, in the instructions, I've been pretty upfront by saying if you're not able to discuss a case study and you're not prepared, you do look at potentially losing 60%. And I put that there so that I can make sure that we have some of the participation that we need to have some discussions about these cases. And so all I would say is those of you here and those who might view the screencast, part of where we can get some value is in discussion of the cases, especially why you might have chosen one. And I can go in here and I can pull up your file and we can all take a look at what you had to say, etc. Or I could ask us to put it into a discussion board. I've been hesitant to do that so I can get you to focus on understanding, okay? But I do hope that we'll see. You should anticipate at some point. I think this is important enough for us to have a class discussion about it. And if I call on people and they're not here or they're not ready, then they have a bit of a problem. And this is the 3,500 level course. It's an upper level course, and I'm assuming that everybody is a big person, and I'm assuming you're understanding that this course is a little bit different from the courses I typically teach. It's more conceptual in its orientation. And so I'm going to be interested to see what you'll have to say about Macy's or anything like that. Now, let me encourage you, please, to make sure that you use some of the resources that are available to help you with these management decision problem questions or the case follow-ups. So I'm going to come back over here. Obviously, you can go out on the net and find a lot of information. You can also come into the OBU website, and I'll find it here for us. Here are the online business resources. I'd be surprised if faculty have not been making you use the database, the books and the resources, the things that are here for students in business. Okay? For example, here's a librarian online ready to help, and I'm going to chat now, and I'm going to just tell her who I am. Real quickly, or him or her, who I am. So now, let me say something. If I had had an online library and I could have beamed in and someone to chat with me, a reference librarian who would help direct me where I needed to go, I would have thought I died and gone to heaven. In the olden days, you trekked to the library and you hoped the stuff was there. Now that everything's digitized, it's tremendous. So I'm going to put in my email. Okay. And you say, okay, isn't this interesting? Um, and I'm putting on help students. And I'll start the chat. Let's see what we got. The librarian's going to connect with us shortly. Let me tell you something. 25 or 30 years ago, if you'd have told the head of the library that you'd have this, Audrey, who's working with me remote, they would have thought this is impossible. Here I've got Audrey, who's joined our chat, and I asked Audrey, what are the hours? And Audrey's joined our chat. Let's see what she has to say. She's typing. How do I know? I can see her right here. And she should be answering pretty quickly. Now, I don't know if you've used this feature before. Let her know what's going on. And I'll submit that. Now, I could be anywhere in the world. I'm just across campus. But I could be anywhere in the world and be having this conversation with Audrey. And so this is really a fantastic tool for you. And you have the hours that they're available. And I know that Audrey and the other staff there just would love to absolutely right? So let me offer you a challenge. Sometimes students say, can I do something for extra credit? Okay, I'll give you a chance for extra credit. You want some extra credit? Go over and use the library, engage in a chat, and look for something, and give me some screenshots of that. And so I can see you've tried to use the online library, that you've used this library that's partners with us. They're your strategic partner. You didn't know that, but they are, who they have all of these resources available for you to search and to find. I don't know how much your other profs are encouraging you to use that, but goodness gracious, take advantage of this tremendous, tremendous resource. Okay, well, I think that's going to pretty much do it. Let me write this here. And they are wonderful people. They do fantastic stuff. Okay, everybody. And I think I'm going to wrap this up because I think we've gone as far as we need to go today. But I think you saw some heard some great ideas that are offered in the textbook, big ideas. And you saw, for example, here in a very small way, and hopefully you'll take advantage of those services. You pay for them, they're there for you, and I hope you use them. Well, folks, I'm going to call an end to this, and you have some case studies to work on, some things that we don't forget. I will give you some extra points if you'll come over and use the online library, engage in a chat session with one of the librarians. It'll be worth some extra points, and put it into screenshots so I can see that you did that. Okay? So there's some extra points involved if you should choose to do it. I will see you next week. And look at this. I want you to see something. Notice that they want some feedback from us. And I'm going to put great. And I'm going to email myself a transcript of the chat. And my contact info. Isn't that cool? The people over at the library, not only librarians, they're master educators. They're educators who can direct you to the great source. Being able to find something is as good as knowing something about 95% of the time. These are people who are master educators who can take you to these resources. All righty. Thank you so much. God bless you, folks. I'll see you later.